Outside Parliament now, opposing the Basic Education Laws Amendment Act and calling for all powers over education to be put in the hands of parents. Thank you everybody for standing with us for the rights of parents in education, and I think it's especially important that we are in the Western Cape, and we are unique in this country in that we have a provision in the Western Cape Constitution that children shall be educated in the system of their parents' choice. Okay, now different people have different interests in terms of what they would like the system to be for their children. Some people want home education, some people want public schooling with a Christian ethos, other people want maybe a Muslim ethos, but we want them to have the choice. We want every parent to decide for their child. And we believe that that is also affirmed in the national constitution. We have the children's interests are paramount in section 28. And we also see the right of protection of religious freedom that has been neglected in many of our schools, to have their choice about what the ethos should be, what the code of conduct should be. And the government has been progressively eroding our parents' rights to decide. We believe that God has given that authority to parents, and that right is also recognized by the international United Nations Universal Declaration of Human Rights. It recognizes the prior right of parents to decide the system on which their children are going to be educated. In other words, the government doesn't grant that right. Parents have it already before the government even gets into the picture. The government can come in as an assistant. They are not in charge.
Yes.
So we need to demand that right. We don't request it. It is our prior right. Then we also have constitutional rights, of which about 10 different rights in our constitution are affected by education, and we believe are being constantly violated in our schools. That includes the right to equality, non-discrimination on basis of religion, the rights to religious freedom, belief and opinion, the freedom of expression, the freedom of association, the best interests of children, the protection of children, which we believe is being violated by things like this learner pregnancy policy that the government would like to have powers to turn into regulations. That means then that they can fire those teachers who refuse to implement it, as many Christians will do, because it is absolutely morally repugnant. They want to have the right to refer children for abortion without even informing their parents, have them educated in their immoral beliefs. And we say no, the school governing bodies decide that, and the parents decide that. You have a right to say no. So we demand those rights, we don't request those rights. Now, one of the things that is really good news that should encourage us to persist in speaking up is that since this was first proposed in 2017, the government has agreed to 2/3 of our demands. Okay, that should encourage us to keep speaking up. It doesn't mean we're going to stop. We keep on speaking up. And President Ramaphosa has agreed for a 3-month consultation period. We've got another 1 month to go. We need to use that month with a sense of urgency. We're not giving up. And in particular, the things that we're asking from the government for this BELA education bill is, firstly, for the definition of home education. Grandparents should also be allowed to home educate. Secondly, we don't want any parents sent to jail. That is not in the interests of parents or children or anybody or education. Then admissions policy must be decided by the school governing body, not by the government. Then language policy must be decided by the school governing body. With the code of conduct, we do not want exemptions from the code of conduct unless there are cultural, religious, or medical reasons. In other words, we don't want the government to be able to just overrule whatever the parents decide in the school governing body. We want parents to decide who they buy school materials from, not the central government. We don't want the school government to be able to close down small schools unless the parents are given a choice of what they are going to do with that money. It is ultimately their choice. Then in home education, the home education organizations have given a list of things that they want, and particularly they want the right to home education automatically unless the government can prove that that parent is being negligent, not an application for home education, rather the government has to prove it. Then in terms of the policies, we want to abolish this proposal that the government must be able to make regulations on learner pregnancy. They must stay out of that. The parents must decide through the school governing bodies. So in summary, we are wanting the government of education by parents under God. That's a fundamental right. That's not something we're asking and begging the government from. That is something which is recognized by the United Nations International Declaration on Human Rights, and we demand that right. So please keep speaking up, and hopefully the government will listen to what we're saying.
Today, with over 50 years in the city, in the evangelical movement, I count on one hand how many times government officials have consulted us. They never consult us. They don't talk to us. They have one or two meetings, then they say they have consulted us. This exclusion is not just
it imposes rigid, for homeschoolers, it imposes rigid school-based regulations, disregarding the best interests of children and the authority of parents in education. Also, what's incredibly shocking is that there's a complete lack of research on home education by the Department of Basic Education, and that's despite the fact that the department's own documents say that they should not regulate home education until they've done that research. Also, we're asking the Department of Homeschoolers are asking the Department to keep the promises that were made during the BELA Act process. The homeschoolers were promised curriculum freedom, that they could choose any curriculum that they liked, and that needs to be explicitly protected. Also, there are unrealistic deadlines in the Act which require homeschoolers to register in 30 days, but the problem is the department doesn't have the capacity to process those regulations, so there's not enough people working in the department to actually process those applications. And so it's one of the things that homeschoolers are asking for as well, that they're subject to these unrealistic.
Very next day, the president of this country, Mr. F.W. de Klerk, declared that it would be a referendum. South Africa is a nation that comes from struggle. We know how to protest. We know how to say no. And today you are part of a minority of people that stand here on a Saturday morning. But in the majority, people have said no to the BELA bill. They have said no to the BELA Act. And every single political party that has campaigned during the elections has made a promise to the people of this country. They've made a promise for better education for all. Whether they are communist, whether they are socialist, whether they are liberals or conservatives, each one of the parties in parliament that are represented here has made a promise to the people of South Africa that they will stand for a better education for all. The BELA bill is not it. It is not a better education for all. And let me also add, that day when we stood here before the elections that would have seen only a few people vote, we were protesting to say South Africa belongs to all. In our memorandum today, we are asking the question to the President. There are 3.5 million Afrikaans-speaking colored Khoi community members. 3.5 million. 75.8% van ons mense praat Afrikaans.
Ja.
We want to ask the President, does the voice of a few only matter? Or does the voice of the colored people that speaks Afrikaans, does their voices not matter? part of that. I'm part of that 3.5 million people wat geforseer was om Engels te praat, want jy kry mos nie 'n plek in 'n Afrikaanse skool nie. My kinders is Engels, hulle kan nie Afrikaans soos ek praat nie, want hulle was geforseer om in 'n Engelse skool te wees. Why is it that we are not at your table? Why is it that the president do not allow equality and inclusivity? You know why? It is only equality and inclusivity for the ANC. When it fits them. When it fits them, it's equality and inclusivity.